Galosestin.
Arreschi mi a Juventudo. All right. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We've got like no book to talk about. It's like we're like pilgrims in a wasteland. It's a two-age sojourn, but
We're still
sometimes
waiting for Nick to finish his book.
Yeah. Oh, true.
Yeah, long wait.
What's your book on, Nick? What are you writing?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
I'm sure it'll be good though. Look forward to
It'll be
talking
awesome.
about it.
But there has been a monumental moment in Two Age Sojourner history. Mike and I saw each other after 5 years.
Oh, we just spent the whole week and we had the best time. It was great. It was the best time ever. It was there was Jim Renihan, there was theology, there was a lot of whiskey, there was just
theology. Like 5 hours of theologizing every night.
There was guitar, there was fire, there was just about everything that you could ever want, except Andre wasn't there.
Yeah, lots of Andre received lots of photos in the wee hours.
Andre's parents were there, but Andre wasn't there.
Exactly.
No, that's right.
Everyone was there. No, it was good times. Good to see Juan Nicoleos, and man, crazy, huh? But
it did look like you guys were having fun. I'll say
well,
that.
I got to hold one of the twins.
Yeah, that's true.
Ruth was friendly. Like Ethan was like on his own mission the whole time.
Yeah. Fair play.
Well, you barely got away with Ruth. I mean, she was like, she was staring you out there for a long time. Oh man, it was kind of funny though. First time Ethan saw you, he was like, "Dada."
Kind of looks right.
And then Nick preaches at our church, and then everyone's first question was, "Are you guys brothers?" So it's something about the beard and the bald that it gets them every time.
That's it.
All right, so here we are, trying to find our way in. After having accomplished another major milestone and point of significance in the history of Two Age Sojourner, we finished a book. I don't think we ever did that before. So that's that, and so that is now available on the YouTube channel for anyone that wants to go and watch, and we'll maybe organize that in some sort of like pseudo course that you can do if you want down the line. But for now it's all there, and now we have to figure out our way forward. We have got a conference coming up, which is going to be along a similar topic. So I think what I'd like to do is sustain the thinking in some area related up until the end. Maybe switch channels completely and do something new in the new year. But at least just push this a little bit, just something fun, something, that we want to do. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. And we can just probe that later on. But let's just have a breather one way or another. And I thought, we've got an email that I haven't got back to from Jackson Steed. And he's in the US, and he basically, I think it was a few weeks, maybe even a month ago now. Sorry, Jackson. But just a few questions.
That's a pretty turnover. That's a quick turnover rate for Two Age Sojourner.
That's not too bad. Yeah, exactly. It's been worse. It's not a year and three weeks. Yeah. So just some random questions. I don't know. Maybe we can help you out. Maybe we can't, Jackson. We might confuse you. We might. I don't know. We don't know everything, certainly, but
we have opinions on.
We have opinions, and we like to give them. So let's start with this one. When discipling a new believer, what are 5 to 10 books? Woo! That's why I didn't answer the email. I was just like, oh, that's too much.
That's a lot of books.
5 to 10 books you would recommend to have them read, that they would read, that they might like. Does that help, or do you feel even further lost in the wasteland? Let's start off with the basics. Starting like what is the okay, you got to read your Bible, and then we do this every now and again. It's like the 5 books on the island thing. But so let's
for a new believer, I mean, you're pretty limited, so you can't go for anything too technical. You want things that are deeply practical.
Yeah, that's
true. So you know what the first book was that came to mind?
Yeah, so it's not just 5 books of my favorite 5 books. We're talking
Yeah,
5
yeah.
books for a new believer. Okay, good.
You
This
know
is good.
what I think would be really helpful is Kevin DeYoung's Just Do Something.
Okay,
It's about,
yeah, that's an
because
interesting
one of the big questions an early Christian has is, how do I know the will of God?
Ah.
And so this is a book that looks at the reformed answer to that question. It's how to avoid fleeces, liver shivers,
Yes.
inner witnesses, and how do you actually just know what God's will is for your life,
Yeah.
and how to make godly decisions.
In the current landscape, that's probably more helpful than it's ever been. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, my early
interesting.
years were in the charismatic church. So, I was always looking for the inner voice.
Yeah.
The children of God are led by the Spirit of God. So I was always trying to tune in to the voice. And this book will set you free.
Totally. Reminds me of something, I think it was Bruce Waltke that wrote it. Finding the will of God, a pagan notion? ? And then he looks at the Old Testament and
Okay.
the revealed will versus this whole like mission to find the will of God. Interesting book.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Does he deal with the Uman and the Thuman? Because I feel like I can't take a book on the Old Testament seriously that doesn't deal with the Uman and Thuman.
I have no
Or
doubt.
casting lots,
the
like
ephod.
the apostles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Casting lots is in the Westminster Confession.
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Another argument for system subscription.
Well, speaking of another book that would be helpful to a young Christian, maybe one of the Confessions.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
It's a good summary of biblical doctrine.
Yeah. I mean, you got to, it's sort of like, it's like homework reading.
Yeah.
You
Got to do a
wouldn't
bit of grind.
Yeah.
Check out all the proof texts.
Yeah. So I put that in sort of like, yeah.
What about I think a Bible overview is always a good idea as well.
I do.
Just
Which one
that
though?
maps out the big picture of the Bible.
Graham Goldsworthy?
I think one of my favorites is According to Plan by Goldsworthy.
Yeah.
But I know that God's Big Picture is also favorites.
I think Edmund Clowney's the mystery, what is the unfolding mystery or something like that? The unfolding mystery. I think that's right. But that is a good book. That was magic.
Yeah.
So I mean, what topics would you want to hit? So we've done the will of God. We've done a Bible overview.
So I'm actually thinking in terms of priority, you would want to start with probably some intro to basic biblical doctrine. So what comes to mind for me, actually? If it's a new believer, R.C. Sproul's Essentials of the Christian Faith.
Or the Foundation series. Yeah.
No, well, not that one. Not the Foundation series. I found that a little bit floaty. But it was like this highly compact, well-written little book that very, very easily, very readable, and just covers all the big issues. And it does it in, I think just as we've gone by, Sproul is someone I've just come to appreciate more and more. He just had his, he was in the right place, I think, in many issues, right? And so he brings that. I mean, obviously he's Presbyterian, so you got a nice little spiel there about baptism and infant baptism and so forth. But other than that, it's just it's fantastic. It's a very, very, very good book. I actually probably might even do that. And Sproul wrote this Bible overview as well, which wasn't as good.
That's the glory.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Grudem's little Bible doctrine book. Maybe I would. I don't know. But it's not
what
like
about Horton. What about the Horton?
Horton, I like, if it's a new believer, even the Pilgrim Theology, I find it very like it's.
Well,
like
What's So Amazing About Grace, or one of his smaller works.
Oh, okay. Now we're
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
The two books.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Books.
Tell me.
For and Against Calvinism.
No.
No, where in the world is the church?
Yes, and it's correspondent.
We're in the world in the church, and what? Dual citizens?
No. Michael Horton. Dual citizens.
Oh, Michael Horton one.
Yeah. We're in the world of the church and the mission of the church, I think it was called. So
Gospel Commission?
Gospel Commission, that's it. Yeah. So those two, it's like dealing with the two sides of the common grace and the the mission of the church thing. And it's just perfect. I don't know why people have dropped the ball, not packaging those and selling them as one volume, two volume set. Because that really,
it's because he wrote a trilogy, and they're already part of a trilogy. So you've got the Gospel Commission, Gospel Driven Life, and Christless Christianity are part of a trilogy.
Where in the world in the church is not that? Where in the world is the church is not there?
So it should be a quadrilogy.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It should just be those two. Because Christless Christianity was just on a little bit on the aggro side for me. I mean, it's it's a good book, but I wouldn't put it like right there. And
the Gospel Commission is like a surprisingly in-depth book, though.
Yeah, it's true. But it's just, man, if you get that down, I mean, in terms of our pet peeves, just keeping the mission clear, it would be
a Two Age Sojourner disciple.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, it is.
Which is, let's be honest, that is what discipleship is. I mean,
that's the only way. Is there another way
to discipleship I do?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, those two are good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just coming back to Sproul, whenever anyone leaves Gloriavale, one of the things we do is we take them through Sproul's Foundation series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 63 lectures through systematic theology.
Okay.
And it's 23-minute lectures each. And what it does is it just imagine someone coming out of a cult with a wrong answer on every doctrine. You just want to reset the whole picture.
Reorient.
On it. So like when someone comes out of a cult or a wrong worldview, it's for me, it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Yeah.
And they need to turn over every piece individually. And so you want someone who's just going to deal systematically with every doctrine. And Sproul has been very helpful, but he's not the only one. But that is one form of book you need.
Yeah, yeah, amen. He did write that 3-volume on the Westminster, which is also really, really good. But it's just because it's so accessible, and it's just him doing his thing, But at the same time, it's maybe a little bit verbose, for a new believer.
I mean, it just really depends on who you've got, doesn't it? Because with some guys,
has John Calvin just become a new believer?
Yeah. That's right.
Or are we talking about your 5-year-old?
It's like First Up Institute, Then
Francis Turton's Eclectic Theology.
Which I still have not read, but
it's good.
But two books on prayer that I think are
I know what Nick's going to say.
Just complete.
Tim Keller on prayer. Tim Keller on prayer.
Tim Keller on prayer?
I was going to say Thomas Watson, the Lord's Prayer.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking basically if you take that traditional discipleship program that you find in like all the old discipleship programs, was you go through the Apostles' Creed, you go through the Lord's Prayer and the Ten Commandments. And that is your basically your intro to the Christian faith.
Do you know, this actually touches on something that I did come to mind that I didn't know that we should even bring it up, but since you brought it up anyway.
Okay.
The fact, this kind of question, I mean, I'm not knocking the question, obviously it's a good question, but the fact that we have to ask this question is sometimes a little bit like the fact that we have to find out how to interpret the Bible. Almost like find our own way in the world, and really what we're talking about when we say book recommendation for a new believer is almost like the catechesis process, right? We're looking at just like, how do you start, and it's sort of like you are always, no matter how good it's just ultimately you're going to shortchange someone by moving them out of the mainstream of the way that this has happened. So it kind of like, just, I got to figure out doctrine. So let me go, John Darby and just try and reconfigure the whole thing. And then let's see how it turns out. Oh, wow, we got a whole new system here. Let's run with that. That's obviously a bad approach. And you might not be as tenacious as Darby, but there's a wisdom in going, I think it looks like I figured it out, but actually better that I just stick with the what's been in place for a long time. So I don't know. It might be. It's not like I would do this, but I think I would want to tell myself to think about doing this. What has the process been for a new believer? So back to you, Andrea, because that's
Well, I was just about to say, because I also think it's funny how our church is considered within our circles to be quite rigorous in terms of its process for membership, in terms of its kind of process for becoming an elder, and like elder training and how seriously we take doctrine. And the reality is we're really not. So like one of the things we do with our elders is we'll go through like the 1689. But really what that's designed for is for like new Christians, so if you think about like a Heidelberg catechism, that was for it was for catechesis, it was for baptism, it was it's that's what it was there for. It's for people who are being confirmed or baptized or whatever it was. And so it's just funny how in the same way that we sing like children's hymns as though they were written for adults, we're now taking children's instruction as though it was written for adults as well, or new believer instruction. But so I think a Heidelberg catechism would be a great place to start, or the New City Catechism or something like that. Great thing to do. But on prayer, the book, what I was going to say was Carson's Call to Spiritual Reformation. I found super helpful.
Cool.
So in terms of actually just holding up what are the biblical priorities for prayer in the New Testament, and then
is that the one where he looks at all Paul's prayers?
All of Paul's prayers,
yeah. God, that's good.
And they're really just a commentary on Paul's prayers, and then with application to how we pray. But the effect of it is that I realized, if you looked at our church prayer meetings at the time, our priorities were totally different, so we were just not praying for anything New Testament related, apart from maybe the last 10 minutes or something like that. The rest of it was all praying for individuals with their knee ache and their hospital appointment and that kind of thing. And so and there's obviously a time and a place for that, but it was about the priorities. It showed the mismatch of biblical priorities for prayer in the New Testament and what we were actually praying for. And this brings me to my second book, which is on the Lord's Prayer. And I think, like Thomas Watson's awesome, but for a new Christian who I'm assuming hasn't read much, doesn't have much Christian vocab,
unless they already have like a PhD in English literature or something.
Well, unless that's that, and then I'll just send them the
that could be the case,
it could be. It totally, yeah. So I've got a guy now. He's being baptized this weekend, and I've basically given him Water, Word, and Spirit. Because
figure it out, bro. 500 pages from a Peter Baptist perspective. Here you go.
And they just figure it out, bro. Figure it out.
Because he's just like that.
Right.
Awesome. So I saw that and I thought, well, do you know what? Let's not play around. I'm gonna give you this book. Let's go for it.
Yeah. It's a good book.
But the one I was thinking of on prayer was Richard Coken on the Lord's Prayer. Excellent little exposition of the Lord's Prayer. And what I really like about it is that it doesn't just go through the Lord's Prayer and apply it to our prayers. It talks about how the Lord's Prayer points us to Christ and his intercession. And so I thought that was quite a unique perspective, but really important because it keeps the gospel in there when you're thinking about Christian prayer. So
cool.
Good. So those are some thoughts. I don't know.
Covenant theology. What about a covenant theology? What about
I think you would just go for at that point you're just gonna go like, listen, all right, okay, enough messing around, get on to Meredith Klein, let's go.
Okay. You wouldn't go to like a Chris Corey's Tell to Adam?
No, I would, you know what, no, in all seriousness, I would recommend Sacred Bond by Brown and
Pat Abendroth's book on covenant theology.
But if I
that is still quite meaty for a new Christian.
If I was down to one, I would choose that Sacred Bond. The reason for it is it's just very, very easy, and it covers big concepts that really that you would not get elsewhere. In just some really beautiful Kleinian nuance. And then you know what I would throw in there? David Van Drunen's Two Kingdoms, Living in God's Two Kingdoms, without a doubt. See a theme coming from my side though,
I guess if I was thinking more along the lines of discipleship proper, I'd be looking for a book on, if it's a young man, manhood. So maybe R. Kent Hughes, Disciplines of a Godly Man. If he's married, you want a good marriage book, maybe something by Paul David Tripp. You maybe want a parenting book, Shepherding a Child's Heart, or Joel Beakey's book on parenting.
Man, I'm so not a practical theologian guy.
There's a couple of areas that you'd probably want to just touch on.
Yeah, I struggled through Yu's book, Disciplines of a God. We did that.
We did it as a men's group. Was very valuable.
Do you know why I struggled? And I suspect this might be why you struggled as well, Mike. It was because it was too close and too soon to Celebration of Discipline by Richard Foster.
Or Disciplines for the Christian Life.
I actually kind of like that book. I mean, I'm not
allowed
allowed
to say
that.
No, I know you did, but this is the problem.
You're not allowed to like that.
I mean,
I know I'm not allowed to like it. I don't like it. Is what I meant to say. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I don't like
and
that.
We haven't recommended a John Piper book.
No.
We haven't recommended a J.R. Packer book.
I would recommend Seeing and Savoring Jesus Christ by John Piper.
Okay.
Tiny little book. It's just dynamite.
I love it.
It's Let the Nations Be Glad for me is number one. Missiology.
Or when I don't desire God. Actually, no, that's my Piper book. I'm going to pick one Piper book. It's When I Don't Desire God.
Okay. Really? Interesting.
Yeah. And in fact, I think John Piper said if you're going to read one of his books, that's the one.
And we were kind of segueing nicely into this. But the next question is, I was wondering what you do for morning devotions. I've been trying different kinds like McShane or Be Thou My Vision. Oh, that's a nice set. That Be Thou My Vision. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's like one of those, these questions, I'm going to inevitably overstate something or lie about something or just give you the wrong impression, So as long as we start the discussion with I suck completely and there's absolutely zero, I'm like squeezing a drop of spirituality out of myself. But every now and again, I do find a little method that works, and I'm happy to share it as long as it's in the context of, geez, please, just make sure you don't misunderstand this as nailing it. Because for me, speaking for myself, don't know about these dudes over here. I can see the halo shining from St. Nicolaus there. In fact, I will testify that every school of theology I've been to, Nick has been up before the crack of dawn. I mean, no matter what the day's been like, Nick is up before the crack of dawn, catching there, he's fully dressed with his like heavy book of theology and prayer book, and he's got his thing. Nick has got his thing. It's obviously weathered the ages. You've been able to maintain that discipline, which is good. Me, I like to catch the extra Z's,
Yeah, dreams and visions.
After 5 hours of theology the night before, you need it.
Yeah, I did. I need it. All right, so what do we got? What do you do for morning devotions? Just what are you doing right now? Let's just
just tell you what I'm doing right now. Yeah. So I don't read through the Bible in a year. I gave that up years ago.
Yeah.
So I recommend it a couple of times when, as a young Christian, go for it, do it.
Now we do it 2 years. It's got to be in Greek.
Yeah. But I stopped doing it. That doesn't mean I don't read lots of Bible. But I don't do it through programmatically in a year. So right now what I'm doing is I'm reading through the book of Micah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read my section. I will then pick up a commentary on Micah. I'll read my commentary. I'll then pick up a theological book that I'm reading. At the moment, I'm working again through Kevin DeYoung and Greg Gilbert's What is the Mission of the Church?
Mm-hmm.
Have a read through that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got our church directory. So pray through a page or two of that. Just think about all the families. And then if there's anything that I'm inspired to do, I'll write something in my journal.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Good. Andrew?
That's half an hour-ish. I'll try to squeeze that into a half an hour.
Okay, in the morning. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so it'll be half an hour to 45 minutes, and then I'm off to work. Yeah.
Good.
So what I've only ever been able to do, so devotionals has never really worked for me, anything like that. It's all about Lectio Divina. So I just usually a psalm, but sometimes other passages of scripture as well. Like you, Nick, the Bible in a year thing I dropped a while ago because I'm just reading too much, and so it just felt more like I was just trying to cover the material. So for me, I needed the time to be slowing down dramatically. So meditating on scripture. Sometimes I use, so these are probably my go-tos.
There's Be Thou My Vision.
Be Thou My Vision. Can't see the two top ones. It's a bit dark.
It's the Book of Common Prayer. and then it's Augustine's prayer book.
Okay. Nice. I got that on Kindle. Yeah.
So but sometimes I've got a whole bunch of them up here that I use. So there's like I've got the Lutheran prayer book. I've got the Scottish prayer book,
Scottish Psalter,
which is not the Scottish Psalter, the Scottish prayer book. This one.
Yeah, haven't seen that.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a bunch of prayer books. I've also got just collections of prayers, like the Be Thou My Vision, and I've got Tim Chester's got a kind of thing on the
yes, I got
which
that
is
one.
a similar
thing.
Yeah. And then just recently, I picked up one called Sheltering Mercy, but the language is a bit flowery, so I didn't quite get into it. But yeah, usually a prayer book is some kind of Lectio Divina thing.
Yeah.
Works well for me. So yeah,
me too. There's just I find I keep coming back to that Lutheran prayer book. Man, Chris Kai introduced me to that one, and I've it's been like a fallback. You know, often I'll find I got like, man, I just wiped out. I got like no time to
that
pray.
one.
I got that one too, but there's the one published in the 50s. I can't remember the exact date. It's before they start getting a little bit, you know, I don't know, just modern from that point on. And you can notice a distinct sort of solidness about the old one. Right. And I had to pick it up secondhand, and it's quite hard to find. But yeah, it's really, it's incredible. It's and that's the one Chris recommended, and yeah, so massive props there.
Nice.
So
just a few other things that I've done in the past is so the Puritans. There's been some Puritans I really haven't enjoyed. Thomas Boston's Crook in the Lot. There was some views of his, you know, the Christians and suffering and the Mosaic Covenant, which you have to watch out for. And so every now and then in the Puritans, you have this weird like copy and paste of the way that God deals with Israel and the life of a Christian. But there are some really good devotional Puritans. So at the moment, one of the things I've been doing just recently is John Owen on temptation. And so while working through that book, intensive time in journaling, just sort of summarizing the book into a skeleton form, just pulling out some key quotes, just really trying to nail it in. Then Samuel Rutherford's letters, the letters of John Newton, just Jeremiah Burroughs' Rare Jewel of Christian Contentment. So those have been really good books.
Yeah.
That have just 2 or 3 pages. You don't have to read a lot.
Right. Well,
those every day you just work through a whole book after a while.
I mean, fantastic. 2 or 3 pages of John Owen.
Yeah, well, 2 or 3 pages of Jeremiah Burroughs. So it's too much. Yeah.
One song.
This won't appeal to everyone, but Jonathan G. Klein has some great. He publishes through Hendrickson. I think he's the editor there or something. But he's he writes a lot of language helps, you know, Greek, Hebrew, and so forth. But he's also written this thing. Well, I suppose it is ultimately a language help, but it just works really well. It's like a nice cloth bound proverb a day in Hebrew, where he just sort of, you know, basically puts this thing together in just a really nice, you know, format where you sort of see all the info you need about the Hebrew in case you need it, but otherwise there it is. And I just find, I don't know what it is. I think it's, well, the Proverbs just throw me into prayer for some reason. You know, I think it's because they smack you with law, and then you like completely need Jesus immediately.
They psychoanalyze you.
Yeah, and you just, you know, you're undone. Like you're just undone completely. And then they don't, you know, and that's it. That's all you need. And sometimes that's all you have time for, and you want to make it, you know. I'd like that to have been true with the Psalms, but I find I just get a little bit confused and lost with the Psalms, and it always gets into a very heady space for me. So I did the Proverbs, you can kind of basically understand them and work with what you know, and they're kind of designed for that piecemeal reading. And so that works really well. And, you know, you can work on your Hebrew while you're at it. So, and then the other thing is again, this is not really going to appeal. Well, I don't know. I suppose it's worth mentioning. The Greek Orthodox prayer book. They've got this really nice volume where they got the Greek on the one side and the English on the other side. And of course, you're going to have a lot of, you know, praise to Mary and stuff along the way. But a lot of it is just the Psalms. But they're nice, they're curated, and they'll have just really beautiful, like Trinitarian, just profound prayers that even if you just read the English side, and then if you want to work on your Greek, that's good. There it is. But it's just it's a place you wouldn't normally look, and I found actually that's tended to that in the Lutheran prayer book have and the Proverbs book is as ultimately ended up being my go-tos. I just keep coming back to them.
Well, I will say this, and this is not just an advertising pun, but I
have that one. Yeah. I used that for a long time. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
No, stay. Oh. I have used your books for quiet times before, especially you can see it's a little bit because I normally take it away with me. Yes. Like if I go camping, like on holidays and stuff, because and then you can see there I'm basically just doing some translation stuff in pencil. Which is just it doesn't always sometimes it takes away from the devotional stuff, but sometimes it's a great way of just meditating on the scriptures because you're just forced to think just a bit more carefully about what the Bible's actually saying. So and that's slowing down can be really helpful.
For people that weren't looking at the camera, that's got the Greek, the English, the Latin, and the Hebrew. And it is really nice to do one of those a day because it's the perfect way to do lectio. You're sort of you sort of the first verse, you read it through, you're really trying to, or you read them all through, you're trying to process what they mean. And then the fact that you're reading the same verse again and again through different languages is really kind of like a meditative process on its own. And I've found that worked really well. But obviously it's sort of tied to the language learning process, so it's not going to be for everyone. But I've got one on the Psalms like that as well. So if anyone's interested, and the Proverbs, which I
think Genesis.
And Genesis, so
and Exodus,
and Exodus, and
Leviticus.
I got the whole Pentateuch out there now, but then Psalms and Proverbs as well. So they really are good. If you enjoy them, then you'll like that. Good. All right.
I've also used a bit of some Christian poetry, which would be similar to using Christian hymns, I guess.
Yeah.
But the metaphysical poets, John Donne, George Herbert, they've got some real gems, and I found some real.
I tried George Herbert, but I just could not. I could not
get into figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So just start with his poem, "The Sacrifice."
Oh, okay.
So this, and then John Donne's actually really good as well. So and I think William Vaughan's the third metaphysical poet. The three classics.
There's some nice pieces, and I'm not going to be. I'm really not trying to be funny at this point, but honestly, one of the books that has been the most devotional book for me is God, Heaven, and Armageddon. It sounds weird to say it, but it's like
that's right.
It's just like he'll say stuff that I've read it like 100 times, and I'll read a page. That's all you need, like a page. It's sort of like the Puritan impact in terms of that practical preaching, but on the theology side, it just leaves you like just with your mind halfway in heaven. It's really amazing, but not trying to. He's like going via some totally analytical route to your heart. It's a strange thing. I think it's just capturing some of the incomprehensible glory, that you realize every now and again. You're just taking the Bible for granted, like all the time, and then he just lifts the veil a little bit, and you go, oh, there it is, and then you just like, that's it. You want to pray afterwards, and so sometimes I need that just to kind of, and I always remember C.S. Lewis's quote where he's like, if the devotional stuff isn't working for you, then put a pipe between your teeth and get a pencil in your hand.
Read some theology, man.
Read some theology, and soon your heart will be soaring and so forth. And that I found that to be my experience. But it is like, it does depend what theology you read, so you can't just like pick up any old theology book. But Klein would be a guy that does that regularly for me. And I suppose, there'll be some people will just have some particular theologian that might do that, and in which case read them and get them to help you pray.
But I do think though that I think sometimes for pastors, right, actually learning the discipline of you're back with us, Nick. But I think sometimes for pastors, the discipline of learning to read on your knees, like so prayerfully read everything.
You mean like literally?
Will yield. What's that?
Are you talking about literally or not?
No.
Okay.
Not, well, yes.
I've just got to check with you these days.
I think you should literally read on your knees. It's good.
I do have a prayer bench.
What if your knees get sore? I think of Spurgeon's quote. He's like, "Oh, don't do that, for heaven's sake. Sit in a comfortable chair.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your mind's going to be distracted."
Spurgeon was allergic to Anglicanism, so you have to just you just have to realize that. And he's pretty reactive in everything he says about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But no, but I do think it becomes silly if you're just so distracted by the pain in your knees. But I have a special prayer bench which has like which the way that you sit on it, it takes the weight off of your knees.
So it's got like a bench for your weight. Yeah.
So it's like you slot your legs through so that you're not actually
a special prayer bench.
Yeah, it comes from France. It was blessed by a priest in France.
Nice.
I remember going.
I bought it from a market.
I was in London with Andre, and we went to John Wesley's house. You know, and you go into his bedroom, and there's like nothing there except his prayer bench. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and an electroshock therapy machine.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I was a pastor in training, I was under Martin Holt, and he used to every month he'd rewrite his prayer book. So he'd pray for 200 or 300 people every day. Follow the Daniel thing. So you wake up 2 or 3 in the morning, pray for 100 people, and then pray at lunchtime, pray in the evening. And he had a prayer bench made. So he had like this thing because he would just pray for like hours every day. It's just
interesting.
Most convicting thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Well, the prayer bench thing is like, because it involves your body, and it's kind of foolish to think that you're not, this is what the Orthodox are constantly railing at us for, they're just like, listen, that's why it's funny. I was mentioning that prayer book beforehand, and it says, all right, now for this one, you have to stand up, and you have to like lift your left hand, and you be reverent when you say this part, and then you have to, and it's kind of like, to Protestant ears, it's like, what are you doing, man? Just leave me alone. I'm praying. But at the same time, it's kind of nice. We just, okay, I'm going to stand now and do this. So there's an order to it, and it's including your body and so forth. But I mean, they go whole hog in that, light your candle, get your icon out, and so forth. And I'm not sure.
Let me read you something. Body becomes an icon. And
let me read you something. So I'm reading Biblical Reasoning, and they talk about contemplation. So theology for its own sake. So looking at God just so you can look at God, for no practical value, but to see more of God. So this is on contemplation. It says, therefore, contemplation beholds the truth, capital T, as an end in itself, talking about Jesus, needing no further justification such as practical benefits, though there are such benefits. God uses contemplation to purge us of idolatry. This idolatry includes an idolatrous, utilitarian rationality, according to which anything, even God, is interesting to us only insofar as we can get something more important out of it than God. In this respect, beholding Christ's glory in faith is supremely useless, inverted commas. But uselessness is not the same as worthlessness, because God is the fountain of all goodness, truth, and beauty. Beholding God is infinitely worthwhile, because he is infinitely delightful. There is nothing more true, more interesting, or more worthy of our attention than God. Contemplation seeks to know and enjoy God in Christ for his own sake, because it begins in astonishment and is restless until it finds its rest in him.
Come on. How do you do it though? That's the thing. Transcendental meditation, or candles, or rote, repetition of a certain thing, or heady theology with a pipe in your, or a comfortable chair like Spurgeon, or what is that's the
yes
thing.
To all of the above. I mean, I love what Tim Keller said. He said it about preaching, but it applies to everything. So you read the Bible until your heart moves. Pray until your heart moves. You read the theology book until your heart moves, because all you're looking for is that thing that's going to cause you to engage. Because you come cold, and then you need that thing that's going to stir you. And so for you, Klein, you have the vista of redemptive history opened up, that your heart is now hooked. Now you're ready to pray. And
so you get psyched about stuff. And I think that's it. And you just got to pull different levers until it works.
Yep.
You know, it's
and so I find that I have to change what I'm doing. So read a Puritan, then I feel like it's getting a bit stale. Change. Like, even if I don't finish the book, I change. You know, go to the next thing.
The
another thing that's helped me.
I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
I
came across this quote that I'm gonna use in my talk for the conference, but given that it's so relevant, so it's by it's in the book Christian Philosophy is the Way of Life by Ross Inman. I don't know if you guys have ever come across that book yet.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's a great book. Really recommend it. But he says, when shepherds who are called to exercise oversight of the flock of God lay aside the contemplative life of ascent, the laity are not able to apprehend the light of truth, because while the shepherd's mind is occupied by worldly matters, dust, driven by temptation, blinds the eyes of the church. When the overseer's vision of reality and the good life is clouded and diverted by inferior objects of sight and attention, the vision of God's people is more likely to become clouded and diverted, and they run the risk of being destroyed for lack of knowledge. It is for this very reason that all Christian wayfarers, and pastors in particular, are to be contemplatives in action.
Yes. Christian sojourners, you meant. Christian sojourners.
I mean, I'll forgive him for using wayfarer instead of sojourner.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not sure what you guys think, but technology is it's a bane and a boon. You know, it's rewiring our brains. Our brains are shrinking. We're dopamine addicts. We are unable to concentrate. We're in a constant state of distraction. Yet it makes all sorts of information that we need available. You know, and the contemplative life, I mean, it's almost, we each have to know ourselves, to know what works, to know how we're wired, and we've got to make space. So that we do have that.
Which is why having actual books is a good idea sometimes, especially. So the one thing that never works for me for devotions is a screen.
Yeah,
that's the one thing that does not work.
You can bank on it not working. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I will just be on Instagram as fast as you can say Hail Mary, you know?
Well, you know, it's because I get really tempted with this because it's so convenient. I mean, I type faster than I write. I want to type stuff I'm thinking about. It sounds like a good idea. You got everything there. It's like one package deal. It's smaller than a book. You can carry it around, you know, but yeah, it just doesn't work.
There's no tactile engagement.
Yeah,
you're made for a tactile interaction.
You know, it's for that very reason that I did those language books, because you know, you can do that on a software thing. You can just like print out those languages and, you know, work with them. But yeah, just to get away from the computer when you do it is like that's the primary objective there. And sometimes that's all you need, just to get away from the computer.
I would highly recommend journaling. That's been someone spoke to me early days, charismatic church. They just told me about George Whitefield and his journals.
His journal,
and they bought me one. And that's it. I'm now on like journal 87. I've got a whole pile of books. It's taken the pile of my journals it's huge.
Now, are you going to burn them before you die?
No one's allowed to read them.
Yeah, because that ends up like I find the journaling process gets a little weird for me.
There's not a lot of like confessions or anything. No. Though from time to time there are prayers of confession. But just observations on the text, just little ideas that just pop into your head.
It slows you down enough to be able to, like, it's weird. It opens the space.
Did you hear the story of Jonathan Edwards? You go for a ride for the day and he'd come back and he had all these pieces of paper stuck all over him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he would then like take each one off and like carefully write it out in his notebook. And that's what journaling is for me. It's just because there's so much stuff that goes through your head. You think, I must remember that, and it's gone.
Totally. Yeah, and then it distracts you while you're praying. So you gotta like write it down, and it's there. See, this is why I always want to go back to the computer, because I'm like, I got a task list and everything. I can just type it. But it just don't go there. Don't go there, people. Oh boy. Anyway. Good. Prayer bench. I'm sort of impressed by that point.
Yeah.
Have you not seen my prayer bench?
I've not seen your prayer bench. I mean, I didn't know that such a thing even existed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We have got quite a few comments on YouTube, Mike. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I've kind of waited for you guys to respond, but you haven't responded. So,
well, let's respond now.
Okay,
we're responding. That's what we're doing. Let's make it
all right. So, there's a guy, Craig Freytag, on our most recent one, part 12. Great job, guys. Part of a small group of faithful listeners in Needles, California, to the ends of the earth. Acts 13:47.
Howdy, Needles.
There you go. And then from Rob Bailey, 1688. What happened in 1688?
Act of nonconformity. Was that 1689?
Okay. Greetings from Texas. I love your podcast and cannot wait for the conference. In quote unquote conference. If you want to do a trial run now,
it's a real conference. No need for quotations. It's real.
But Mike, you said it's not a conference.
I know. But it's real. Okay. Let's not.
Okay, it's real, but it may or may not be a conference.
Yeah.
If you want to do a trial run now and are looking for feedback, let me know. November is too long of a wait.
Trial run for what?
I think he's just basically saying it's too long to wait till November for the conference.
Oh, so I should put it on.
If we want to do like a demo,
talk about what we're going to talk about.
That's right. Yeah.
Steal our own thunder.
Yeah, nice. There you go. Nice. So that's I'm now just checking to see what else is going on here. Okay, so on part 11 from Reformational 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
I appreciate
I know this guy.
Was that Mike and Andre on their own?
Is it possible?
It is. This was the one.
Oh,
I appreciate the discussion. My burden has been to show the full compatibility of Klein and is this Greg? This isn't Greg, is it?
This is Greg.
Okay.
He's Greg Reformational. Okay.
Yep. My burden has been to show the full compatibility of Klein and Derwit. They naturally dovetail. Ersatz, Neo-Calvinists, the Ersatz Neo-Calvinists, Ersatz. I feel like that's a typo, but also a place. Who can't embrace Klein are worthy of criticism you offer, and they distort Neo-Calvinism. Similarly, those who read Klein through the scholastic categories are unable to embrace genuine Neo-Calvinism because of their scholastic distortion of Klein's views.
Yeah. So no,
Mike says yes.
I appreciate what Greg's doing. You know, I think just more needs to be said about that, and I think Greg's the guy to say it. So I'm listening.
Okay,
I'm waiting. Yeah.
Then Jackson Stead, in response to the same one, says, I know there's a controversial question about rare situations, but how does Reform to Kingdom deal with ethical questions like smuggling slaves in the Underground Railroad or hiding Jews in the basement during Nazi persecution against Jews, or something like Rahab's lie?
Is this really on our YouTube thing?
This is on the YouTube thing in response to our thing.
Wow.
The one that you and I did on part 11.
Okay.
I can't even remember what part 11 was about. What was part 11 about?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question. What just one more time?
It's a good question. So how does R2K deal with ethical questions is the short version. And then like he gave an example.
I don't think there's anything different with regards to the ethical questions. So if there's a Jew hiding underneath your floorboards and you're trying to save their life, and some Nazi storms into your kitchen and says, "Oh, you're hiding Jews under your floorboards," we'd probably have the same sort of answers that others would answer with. I don't think the Reform to Kingdom approach has a distinct and different set of principles that we'd be working according to.
No.
So I like what Vern Poitras, I think it was Vern Poitras who said, I refuse to answer your question, and I'm going to ask you a question. How dare you expect me to tell you where someone's hiding if they were hiding here so that you can murder them? Don't you feel, and just turn the tables on them and go hard at it. And,
and I'm sure that the Nazi soldiers would be very accommodating.
Of course they would be. But if it's a case of, because I think we'd all agree that you don't. I think we'd all agree that God's a God of truth, and we don't lie for practical purposes. We try to be people of truth, and we would try and avoid having to tell a lie at all, and rather use the situation to preach the gospel. And I thought Vern Poitras
on that point,
a wise approach.
100% agreed. but I suppose where my mind was going was more along the lines of like Daniel in Babylon, dealing with all sorts of cultural immorality and yet not dying on every hill. Joseph in Egypt, something like that. Just being in Rome, us being in the world now. I think what a two kingdom perspective might do is just jumping right over what you've just said there is the other side, and let's start with the more charismatic kind of version of this, where your response to everything is to Christianize it. So, and whether that means stick a fish sticker on it, or wear an Israel t-shirt, or something along those lines, it doesn't matter. It might be but it's just there's this burden that you have to Christianize things, you have to turn them into something that it's not okay to have a common sphere at all, in which that immorality might co-inhabit with morality, if that's probably not a good way to put it, but you know what I mean. So a two kingdom perspective just at least frames that in a way that you don't have to run around like a chicken without its head on, just trying to stick fish stickers on things. Or, it kind of reminds me of that: sell a good shoe at a fair price, carry on, soldier, and then do all those things that are expected of you clearly as a Christian, works for neighbor and so forth. The other thing, just on a similar point, is that again, what I alluded to earlier was that you don't have to die on every single hill necessarily. Now, maybe this isn't the best thing to bring out as we're talking about Nazis and so forth, and because that probably is a hill that you would need to die on in terms of someone's life, and so exactly what you were saying there, I agree. I don't think anyone would disagree in that there's a difference between discretion and honesty. You have to, the commandment calls for honesty, and that can be something that is within the context of a certain discretion. I think that's fine. But at the same time, not all things are those things. And just because they are terribly wicked, they don't have to be dealt with by you all the time from a soapbox, or from, you quitting your job and going into government and so forth. And maybe there is a more effective way: salt and light, sturdy witness, being a hard worker of integrity in your workplace and so forth. Not ducking, not battening the hatches, but being like Daniel. I mean, what was that exactly? That was just like, the guy had longevity, and there were some pretty thorny situations that he had to endure, and yet he wasn't dying on every hill. We just know that. It's just a fact.
A theonomist wouldn't be able to be Daniel, because
no, he would not. He would have to kill the false prophets. Yeah. As soon as he's got some leverage, okay, now there's false prophets who got to go. And then that would be the first misstep. Daniel seems to be able to hold fort. And I mean, Joseph is another one that comes to mind. I mean, my goodness, wow.
Second under Pharaoh.
Yeah. I mean, that could not have been easy to navigate. There would have had to have been something like a two kingdom perspective, for lack of a better expression.
I do think that the two kingdom thing, what it does do is it highlights that wisdom, the category of wisdom literature, and living wisely, where you're thinking more in terms of what is the better thing to do, rather than what is the right or wrong thing to do. So it has a very important place in the way that we live as sojourners in the world. You're not just thinking in terms of law, you're thinking in terms of wisdom. Because you are navigating a space where you are going to have to make wise decisions about where you stand.
Like Van Drunen talks about, certainly from a natural law, and let's say you're now let's say you're in government, you have some ability to influence, the ethical matters are before you, like prostitution and this and that, and what do you do about it? What are the laws about it? I think at that level, there's a framework thing in which that allows you to say, as a Christian, I am 100% not okay with this. This is against the law of God. And whatever issue we're looking at, it's plain as day. And yet that does not equal, all right, therefore, I will now chain myself to this fence and, everything ends at this point, and you haven't even got started yet. Because I mean, you know, two kingdom theology allows you to just go, okay, well, there is place. God himself has put a structure in place that deals with the mass wickedness of man, and restrains it. And you know, there's even a wisdom in, as you were saying, just kind of acknowledging the penultimate ends that certain laws might have. They don't reach the ideal. They don't bring about a utopian society. They never will. They never will bring you into Sabbath glory, but they might do a certain level of good or preserve a certain level of good in society, even if it seems that they might have to allow for the wickedness. They're not positive in the sense that they're not ever able to go beyond what is in place already by way of just the fallenness of man, but they put in check and balance certain things that that might preserve the good that is in that same humanity. So you know, those are things that I don't see in Neo-Calvinism quite as well. They're just like, oh, we got to have a Christian society, done deal. Now again, I said that in a wonderfully non-nuanced way for anyone that's listening who's a Neo-Calvinist.
If we nuance everything, it gets boring.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. That's kind of the thing. That's a big thing, I think, just in terms of our bread and butter.
There's more comments. How many more do you want to go
do them all?
Let's hear them.
All right, let's go. So HM Godwin on part 10. The issue with law gospel antithesis is the question of how one is able to claim the third use of the law. Lutherans tend to downplay the third use of the law, which is why Klein tends to be called Lutheran instead of Reformed. Comments. So in other words, is Klein's law gospel distinction a downplaying of the third use of the law?
Well, maybe just taking it a step back. I don't. If you have a third use of the law, it doesn't mean you can't have a law gospel antithesis.
No.
So you, depending on how you structure covenant theology in general, will determine whether you have a law gospel antithesis. And you can have a very clear covenant of works that doesn't have any grace in it, and keep a nice, clean law gospel distinction, and yet in the new covenant recognize the law is written on the heart. And the law becomes a tool by which the Holy Spirit can help you think good thoughts about becoming more holy and what the will of God is, and it becomes a useful tool for meditation. So I don't think they're necessarily incompatible, but whether Klein's view leans in a certain direction is a different question.
Yeah, I agree.
So interestingly, just on that, I've just seen on another video, this is by Christian Polymath. Sounds like a Neo-Calvinist name to me, Christian Polymath. Christian Polymath 5874 says, great episode. This is commenting on part 9. Over time, though, I've seen that there's no need for third use of the law. Otherwise, great stuff. Now, I'm not sure if he's saying that we're saying there's no need of the third use of the law, or if he's saying he's come to see that there's no need of the third use of the law. But over time, though, I've seen that there's no need for the third use of the law. Otherwise,
I find that a very difficult case to make, when we would probably agree that the laws are repeated in the New Testament. You know, do not steal, do not commit adultery. It's
yeah. I do think that Klein's view, or at least the basic sort of structure, heads towards the way that Beines is kind of written about it in Law in the Hands of Christ, and you know, some of the Puritans wrote about it that way. It's, you know, just moving from one covenantal enshrinement to the other, rather than seeing artificial categories kind of go through and, you know, bank on this kind of overlapped one essence covenant of grace idea that just, you know, happens through 2 administrations. Just that's the end of that. It seems that, you know, I mean, like ultimately it ends in pretty much the same place. It's just that you would say it a little bit different. And you have these new covenant imperatives that they come to you within the different covenantal framework almost. So I think there is something to talk about there. And but in terms of the principle of, you know, hey, there are imperatives in the new covenant, you know, gospel driven imperatives, and they are, you know, the commandments that are given to us, and that functions pretty much like the, you know, one would talk about in the third use of the law. I mean, there's no obvious problem there, I don't think, anyway. But yeah, I suppose it's just a few different ways to slice it.
Yeah, it all depends on how you see a couple of other different issues. Do you believe that the moral law is for all times and all places, for all people? Do you believe the moral law is enshrined to some extent in the Ten Commandments? Do you believe that the law that was enshrined in the Ten Commandments is to some extent written upon your heart as part of the New Covenant? Do you believe that Paul articulates the laws of the Ten Commandments in the New Covenant for the New Covenant believer? So how you answer each of those questions will... Exactly. And that's not even looking at the covenant enshrinement question. That's just even more general law questions.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that are connected. Yeah, and that's an episode on its own. But I mean, I think that just coming back to that first issue, I wouldn't see anything obvious, incline that that would lead you to go, okay, that's it. We can't do normal. I mean, there is a more careful way to put the third use of the law. I maybe word it a bit differently, but in terms of substance and principle, I don't know. I think it's okay.
So Klein would want to word it in such a way so as to show the distinctiveness of the Mosaic economy. And that shouldn't be wholesale copy and pasted.
Yeah, and that's the big.
But whether in the pastoral application he wouldn't just do the same thing that we're doing is another issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interestingly, another comment on the same topic is great stuff. Would like to see you guys do a video giving your interpretation of Matthew 5:17-20 and Luke 16:16-17, which are the not a jot or tittle of the law would pass away passages. So obviously a lot of questions about how we'd navigate third use of the law stuff, the role of the law in the Christian life today. So it might be worth doing something on that.
Yeah.
And then another comment and that was from Curtis Brooke Greenwood. And then Sean Mathis.
Dude, all these comments on our thing. That's crazy.
This is on the YouTube stuff. I saw this the other day and I was like, oh, poop, we should probably be more
I haven't looked in a while.
more engaged. Anyway, so Sean Mathis says, as always, great material. What would you recommend as an introduction to the two kingdom view? I recently read Center Church, and Keller gives a fairly brief overview of the major views, while mostly focusing on Neo-Calvinism. But I'd like to get my feet wetter without drowning.
Yeah.
Van Drunen,
living in God's two kingdoms. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
It's just that the first half of the book. First half of that book is just basically Klein's covenant theology, and then the second half is just it applied.
Yeah.
So it's just...
I mean, really, it's like the last chapter that actually threshes out dual citizens as well. I know it's a bit controversial, but dual citizens is really very good.
I don't think you can buy it anymore. I don't think it's even published, but because but it was good. But it wasn't the best as an intro text. It was more just a sustained meditation on a few different points. So anyway, I don't really mind so much. All right, good. Are there more? Surely not.
Hang on.
All right, we might have to come back to some of these because I'm getting sleepy now.
Yeah. One time.
We don't know what Mike's going to say.
Yeah.
Been a long day.
Yeah, I think I've reached so we're back at part 7, and I'm not seeing anything. So no, we're back towards the one that you have seen and picked up. So I think that's probably good for now. Just thanks for the comments. Like, I mean, it is cool. And if you are listening to this and you don't comment, I mean, Mike will never, ever do this. So I'm just going to do it anyway. That it is helpful if you kind of like and engage with the stuff on YouTube, because at the moment we have got 374 subscribers.
What?
Okay.
374? That's massive.
That's massive.
374 subscribers. And I'm just going to go ahead and calculate an average of about 100 views per video.
So, Mike, who sent these wooden plaques?
Austin Olsen.
You are awesome.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no, I haven't got mine on.
Oh, no. Odd one.
Sojourners.
Obviously, there are only 2 sojourners in the room.
If we keep making obscure visual references like that, then that might drive more traffic to the YouTube as well. Because people listening to this will not know what on earth to say.
I think we will break YouTube if we have any more traffic.
I mean,
we're
like,
gonna monetize soon.
300.
It's like the size of a church service already.
300 people. That's like colossal. Wow, we
Sheesh.
got to start being more careful about
I
what
don't
we
know
say.
is why
I mean, a
if
remnant
there's
doesn't
300
need to be
people,
much
why
bigger
only
than
100 views?